Chapter 9. The Ilios River was fed from the Mothfang Mountains and ran south for hundreds of kilometers until it split into the east and west Ilios and reconnected 20 kilometers beyond, creating the large island whose first inhabitants named it after the river that parted to create it. Beyond the island, the river continued southward through Illyria's southern realm before bending westward towards the heavily wooded land of Gladehaven. Leela had read somewhere that the Mothfang Mountains had originally been called the Mammoth Fang Mountains, but over time the name had shortened to its current state. Now, Mammoth Fang makes more sense, Leela considered. She knew why she was occupying her mind with useless facts. She was getting scared. Hours ago, Leela had passed out of Illyrian's south gate, crossed the southern bridge, and kept close to traveling caravans, pretending to be part of the groups until they veered away from her path, at which point she raced forward, and one time even backward, to find another caravan, troop, or farmer with whom to share the journey. As she put kilometers between herself and her home, the travelers were thinning out as they branched off onto forking roads, and Leela worried that her current companions, a trio of loggers, would soon veer away, leaving Leela alone in the night. And who's to say these loggers are trustworthy enough to camp with? She thought. Most people were civil during the day, but darkness emboldened even the most resolute to indulge in their vices. Probably better than bumping into shades by myself, Leela considered. So far, the loggers had been tolerant of her presence, so she decided to press their courtesy. "Where are you headed?" she asked the closest one, a tall man with a braided red beard that nearly reached to his navel. He wore no shirt, yet his forearms were dressed in thick fur, possibly to prevent scrapes from bark. "Northern Gladehaven," he responded gruffly. "Well, that's not what I wanted to hear," Leela admitted. Her compass pointed southwest, yet these loggers were eventually going to turn straight west, if not northwest. "When are you laying down camp?" "Bowsmith Hill," he answered curtly. Leela had never been there, but she had a vague idea of where it was. If she was correct, they'd reach it soon. "Would you mind sharing your campfire tonight?" She almost added that she had a little money, but then thought against it. Redbeard exchanged a look with one of his companions, a burly brute whose sleeves were rolled up to his elbows. He and the final logger manned the handles of the empty cart. They had sold the lumber in Illyrian and were returning to gather more from their site in Gladehaven. The brute addressed Leela without looking at her. "What do you offer?" Again, she considered mentioning money, but that might actually put her in a more dangerous position. What are you eating tonight?" "What, you want our food too?" "Not exactly. I know this area grows cloud-top mushrooms and wild onion. You catch a blaze hare or two, and I can cook up my mother's slappy stew." "Slappy stew?" "Yep. It's so good you'll slap your brother to get more." The burly man chuckled, and Redbeard offered, "You can stay for one night, but we're not babysitters." Leela thanked them and shared the dirt road until a small hill rose in the distance, at which point they left the road and walked the 30 minutes to reach it. Set off by the black night sky, the aurora veil burned brightly above, coloring the trees and plains in a soft, watery rainbow. It seemed brighter outside the city, and the artist in Leela made a note to marvel at the natural phenomenon when she had a spare moment. Before she could, she assisted the loggers in pushing the cart up Bowsmith Hill, though she doubted her help made it much easier for them. Hopefully, they appreciated the effort nonetheless. Once crested, Redbeard began a campfire while the brute descended the hill with a net and a hatchet, no doubt to catch quarry for the stew. Leela searched for mushrooms, onions, and other herbs to use in the recipe, and by the time she returned with ingredients, a blaze hare had already been skinned. It wasn't a feast, but it was enough to satisfy her hunger pangs. The loggers even shared a roll with her. As kind as they were, Leela knew she still needed to be cautious. While they cleaned up supper, Leela placed a circle of twigs around her bedroll, took out her pad, and began painting the twigs, imbuing them with enough potential energy that once something crossed its boundary, the nearest stick would snap, and cause a chain reaction, cracking all the others, waking Leela and giving her the opportunity to flee. Feeling somewhat protected with this warning system, she lay down on her side so she could keep an eye on the others and the glistening aurora veil above them. Her blinks became slower and lasted longer until sleep finally won over her resolve. Zara watched the dark bank continue to slide past. Twisting tree roots snaked out of the earthen ridges and plunged into the water like straws. Every once in a while, someone's personal dock jutted out from the land with a small outrigger tied to one of the dock's pilings. She tried to imagine what it must be like to live without the security and convenience of a city, but her churning stomach kept distracting her. She wasn't sick, but she was on her way. It helps if you peer in the direction you're heading, a young sailor suggested. Is it that obvious? Not really, just typical, he smiled. I'm Alden, but everybody calls me Skids. He must have been close to Zara's age, maybe a couple summers ahead. He was a gangly figure with limbs that seemed at odds with his own body. His sandy hair, perpetually tousled by the salty sea breeze, framed a face dotted with freckles that looked like a map of distant lands. His clothes were mismatched, making Zara think that they were handed down. He was cute, in an awkward way. Zara, she replied, shaking Skid's hand. Here, he said, breaking off a piece of root that he held in his other hand. This helps too. Immediately, Zara recognized the girthy plant, and she laughed. What's so funny? Skid smiled. My mom would be so pleased with herself, she answered, popping the chunk of wisp root in her mouth and chewing. After the sun had fallen, many of the activities on the Whispering Gale had become suspended. Captain Drake had given the wheel to his boatswain, and the other man with the constant duty was the barrowman, who watched from the crow's nest atop the mainsail. Occasionally, a sailor would adjust a jib or scrub the algae from rigging, but for the most part, the ship coasted lazily along the Ilios River on its own. Zara and Skids turned towards the ship and sat down on the deck with their backs to the railing. The mild temperature, fresh air, and a perpetual breeze was nice, and Zara closed her eyes to savor each a little more. Where are you heading? Skids asked. If you don't mind sharing. Keeping her eyes closed a few moments more, Zara replied, My friend wants to go to the Reach. Pepperbeard's boots, the Reach? She opened her eyes. Yes, but I'm trying to convince her out of it. Why? She paused, considering her words carefully and double-checking Alara's whereabouts on the foredeck, near the front of the boat and out of earshot. There's something important I feel we should do, and it doesn't involve hiding in a far corner of Viridian. I see, Skids nodded, trying his best to understand. What about you? Zara turned. Me? Skids bent a knee and pulled a leg forward to rest his arm on. I go where the wind goes. Where are you from? He lowered his gaze. Eldredon. Captain Drake found me when I was just a minnow thieving in the streets. He pointed up at the boatswain behind the large spokes of the ship's wheel. I tried picking coin from Finnegan up there when the gale was ported, but he caught me, and he took me to the captain. But instead of taking my hand, he offered me a job. Zara wanted to ask about Skid's parents, but it seemed like it might be a painful subject. So, Captain Drake took you under his wing? Aye, he's a proper gent. Zara peered over at the captain, who was serving rum to a few sailors. Had she met the captain on the streets of Illyrian, she would have walked a wide berth around him. She was thankful she hadn't let his intimidating appearance scare her off. After pouring one for himself, Drake sat on the rum barrel and began to sing. Beneath the veil we rove, we roam, on ways of emerald we make our home, through glistening tides, low pincher's tail, with cloth unfurled our fate to sail. The image of this giant, calloused man singing tickled Zara, and she couldn't help but smile. When Drake took up the chorus, 7 of his men, including Skids, accompanied him with varying degrees of harmony. Yo-ho, me hearties and night watchers light, we'll chart the vast ocean, these stars and night. With plow as guide, we never will stray, in Voda's embrace we'll find our way. Zara's family wasn't particularly religious, but she recognized Voda's name in the shanty, goddess of the oceans. While not necessarily worshipping her, the nomad people respected, feared, and often prayed to her for safe journeys. No doubt Leela would be able to remember more about Voda, along with all the other gods of the various Viridian cultures, but Zara only knew the big six: Voda, Thulgar, Morgrim, Orlana, Selenia, and Dracon. The thought of Leela saddened her. She hadn't even said goodbye to her best friend. She must be worried sick. After a few more verses, the song ended and Skids gathered himself up. Well, it was nice talking to you. I'm off to bunk. Did the captain show you your hammocks? He did. Thank you. Good night, Skids. Night. See you in the light. His oversized boots clumped awkwardly as he navigated the swaying deck to the cabins below. Zara wondered if her traveling companion was as tired as she was, so she moved over to Alara, who was watching the sky. I think I'm heading down, Zara expressed. What is this? Alara asked. This what? She pointed to the radiant curtain billowing among the stars. The veil? Have you never seen it before? Alara seemed both awestruck and concerned. No, the sky only contained the moon and stars in my time. Are you serious? We were taught that it's always been here. It's just a part of nature, like lightning. Alara squinted her eyes. Well, good night. Good night, Zara. Confused, Zara made her wobbly way to the steps that led to her hammock below deck. How could the veil be something that's only been around for a few hundred years? That's like saying the moon just appeared one day. She decided to file the topic away for later discussion. Now it was time for sleep. The Nadinas hadn't been any help. They had neither heard nor seen anything out of the unusual, and the store looked completely normal. General Sharp had no reason to disbelieve them. Both looked completely shocked to see him and Octavia in their humble shop. The elder had contributed very little in the exchange, though afterward she explained that residual energies radiated from the building. She had no doubt that the magical surge had originated there, despite the owners being aware of it. And why would they be? Thought Sharp. Those who cannot use magic cannot sense it. He himself never did. They had not lingered at Nadina's apothecary, despite Elder Octavia's feelings about the magical fallout there. She claimed that a trail threaded its way from the building through the warrens and out the port gate. Realizing that the mission would be extended, Sharp ordered some of his men to gather provisions and reconvene at the gate. Once they were prepared, Sharp, Octavia, one of Sharp's lieutenants, and two of his sergeants mounted their packed equinors and trotted out the gate. Despite his discontent about having an elder on the team, Sharp was glad to stretch his legs. For the last few months, he had been stuck in the city, overseeing its garrison. The training, drills, administration, crisis response planning, civil coordination, adjudicating disputes, law enforcement, equipment maintenance, and his least favorite duty, public relations, had begun to wear on him. Every once in a while, reports of a shade reached him, and the night would entail rounding up farmers or travelers, setting perimeters, or actually engaging with a wraith itself, though that was always a last resort. Those were always the bright spots in an otherwise mundane routine. He longed for action, and as he followed Octavia's Equinor, he replayed events from the last military engagement he had participated in, the Battle of Stricken Plain. He had no personal vendetta against the Ember-forged clan, but when the people of Gladehaven requested aid from Illyria, the elders had to respond. Gladehaven and Illyria enjoyed mutually beneficial trade agreements, so when the clan began encroaching on the territory, Illyrian forces banded with those of Gladehaven to push out the invaders. It wasn't a long war, just a few weeks, but Sharp couldn't deny the enjoyment that came from strategizing and the rush of adrenaline that came with battle. He shook his head. Stop romanticizing war, he told himself. Illyria deserves peace. So do I. He refocused on the road and took stock of his team. Directly behind him rode Lieutenant Celine Ravenswood, who defied her noble upbringing by choosing a life of service in the military. Known for her tactical brilliance and unwavering loyalty, Celine quickly rose through the ranks under General Sharp's command. Her keen intellect and strong sense of duty made her an invaluable asset to Sharp, who often acquiesced to her judgment when Illyrian nobles brought forward disputes. On either side of her were Sergeants Bale Ironside and Nathan Oching, the former hailing from the Mothfang Mountains. As such, Bale's native sense of honor and tradition made him a perfect fit for the Illyrian garrison. He had a background in blacksmithing as well, making him a crucial resource for the quartermaster. He was the brawn of the team, sporting a massive two-handed axe that had been crafted by the master weaponsmiths of Mothfang. Nathan, or Notch as he was called, had fought with Sharp in the Battle of Stricken Plain. He was from the Gladehaven Battalion, but after the war had decided to make a name for himself in Illyria. An excellent tracker and archer, the thin Gladenite was alleged to have some faint magical ability, but he always denied it. Soldiers may have spread the rumor because they were jealous of his sharpshooting, or perhaps his bow was a proxy. Sharp allowed the cause to remain a mystery. He was more interested in the results. They'd been following the Ilios River south for nearly an hour, and Sharp was convinced that whatever was causing the magical trail was traveling by water. If so, they might be in a race of attrition. The Equinors were faster, but a boat required no rest. If Sharp could be sure that the source would continue sailing, he would recommend the team cut west through southern Illyria and headed off at the river's fork in Lower Gladehaven. However, there was no guarantee that the mystery target would continue by river. At any moment, the person, or object, or creature, could disembark and move in any other direction. He didn't like someone else taking the lead, but for the time being, Elder Octavia was their best hope in tracking down their prey.